Hello and welcome. I hope people are doing well. I'm doing um, better. Um, I actually felt worse about the game the day after, kind of replaying in my mind. Um, and now I've gradually felt better. Gradually, yeah, I didn't know whether I was going to do another video kind of about the penalties, about the whole talking points and stuff about the game. And this isn't really, but Gerhardsson's just done his press conferences, final press conference as manager. So I thought, and he's explained some decisions, and I just think it's quite interesting to go over, basically. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. Um, but yeah, so the first, I guess, the big thing with Gerhardsson, there was a lot of criticism on Smilla Holmberg, an 18-year-old, taking that penalty, the decisive seventh penalty. I mean, I'm doing credit; it was a decisive penalty. I'll get to my view, but I think people were also annoyed why an 18-year-old took it when there was Blomqvist, Hurtig, and Janogy who didn't. Um, um, Gerhardsson explains there were many reasons why Holmberg took it. One is that Smilla Holmberg is one of our best penalty takers in training and has a character and a personality. I've never understood this whole thing about starting to involve age. Then maybe you shouldn't be in the squad if it's age regulated. This is Google translated this article. Um, so yeah, just if it doesn't always sound perfect. If you're going to be in a European Championship squad, you need to play, start, and jump in. Then there's opportunities to take penalties. If you're as good as she is, you should do it. Now it wasn't so successful that way, but starting to mix age into it, I don't think that belongs at this level. And then he mentioned something about men's side, which I don't really get, but I get his point because his point is that Holmberg, obviously, has been playing really well since she came into the team. She's clearly a quality player, even at her age, and she's had a really good championship. And what his point is, why can't she take that penalty? She's so good. If she's old enough to be in the squad, if she's old enough to be brought on in those games or starting the game against Germany, then why can't she take that penalty? Um, and I kind of agree. Like I get people's frustration with why she was on such a decisive one. I think the point is anyone in sudden death, if you're on sudden death, you're not one of the first five chosen anyway. So you're not one of the top penalty takers. So it wasn't like she was chosen fifth or first. She was chosen seventh. That's quite far down the list. Um, and anyone at that point is got the pressure of either trying to score or keep you in it, or trying to win or keep you in the game. So like if she scored, then it would have gone to, I think it was Janogy was next. And then it would have been Janogy's responsibility um, to save us or on the decisive one. And then you can be like, why is Janogy on? I think you can complain about it being a decisive penalty. At the end of the day, it was not obviously. If you're selected at the end and you're deemed not good enough to be in the first five, then you're not you're not you're always going to have to take a decisive penalty if you're going to have to take one, if that makes sense. So I don't get that criticism. I don't get that criticism that I've seen from neutrals, but also a bit from Swedish media. It's like, what do you expect? Like, if she was picked fifth, I could get why people were annoyed because that is you've intentionally chosen her in what is deemed a very important position. And I know maybe people are annoyed that Falk was fifth, but we'll get to that. But I think I think it's I think the criticisms to Gerhardsson is unfair. She's a good player and she was picked seventh, quite far down the list, but better than others because he believes in her, and I see nothing wrong with that. And I know it's going to hurt, and I'm gutted for her that she missed. I'm gutted for all the players that missed, but at the end of the day, she's 18 and she'll have another Euros age 22. Most likely, if all goes well, 26, 30, 30. She'll play loads. She'll have loads of chances to rewrite this story, if that makes sense. Whereas someone like Jakobsen, who misses probably her last game, I never want to write a player off. Probably, might be her last game for Sweden, and it's done like that, and she's going to have to now live with that as maybe the ending point of a really good Swedish career. So I feel like it's actually obviously maybe experienced players can deal with the pressure more, but at the end of the day, it's actually probably harder for them to take. Maybe that's a bold opinion, but that's just what I'm thinking. He also mentions why, Lena Hurtig, Janogy, and Blomqvist didn't take it. He said Rebecca missed out on the last World Cup there. So I thank you for the person that corrected me in the comments. It was not Blomqvist who took the penalty, who scored the penalty in the World Cup. She actually missed. I think I was thinking of Bennison. So obviously that might be the reason she's not played. Then I think you can question why she was brought on at the 117th minute if she's not trusted as a penalty taker. I do think that's weird. And we'll go into that more. But yeah, and then in both Janogy's and Hurtig's cases, there may be other underlying reasons that you may not want them to choose them in the first place, given the history. And I think it comes down to basically both have dealt with mental health issues in the past, quite publicly known. And Hurtig, even though she scored that one, as this article says here, even though she scored the penalty, the decisive winning one in the 2023 World Cup against USA, it was just in, so she just scored it. It wasn't. I've seen some people like, why is Hurtig, an experienced player who scored in the last World Cup, why is she not ahead of Holmberg? Well, she found it really tough, is what this is saying. She said that before in the national team's pre-camp in before the championship. She said that she doesn't want to talk about it because lots of emotions are connected to it, and not just positive ones. So even though obviously there would have been relief when she scored, it was, I think, a really tough kind of moment and maybe feelings after. So I think it's kind of maybe understandable why those two weren't selected, whether they didn't want to stand up. I think it's understandable maybe. And also I think it's understandable why Gerhardsson might not want to ask them to. Okay. I think the other player that didn't take a penalty would have been Nilden. I don't really know about how good she would have been at that. And then the other one is Blomqvist. And Blomqvist, for me, is the weird one. Blomqvist is the one where that's a weird decision. The others make sense to me. It really does. And it makes sense to me why really Holmberg was chosen 7th. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion, but I think it's quite good that he's explained it here, his thoughts, and I kind of agree. Now, another talking point is why Blackstenius was replaced. So she was replaced at the very end of the game, and it was a muscle injury. And he says he talked to Stina, and she made this a sign basically, and he felt he couldn't risk the 3 extra minutes of the game, of the extra time, plus then any added on, and he didn't want to get another injury to a player if we were to advance. So that's why he replaced her, and he replaced her with Blomqvist. So it wasn't just, Blomqvist is going to come on and take a penalty. I think he goes on to say Blomqvist would have been on the 5th penalty. I think that is spoken about here. Yeah, Stina Blackstenius was one of the penalty takers, but he had to take her off. So look, if he feels like he had to take off, and the medical team, he felt like he had to, because he got an indication from the medical team. If Gerhardsson felt like he had to take a player off with 3 minutes to go, even though they're an important penalty taker, then I just say, like, fair enough. There must have been a legitimate injury concern there. Obviously, I feel a bit, when I've read this is the one bit which I feel probably most frustrated by, hearing what he says in terms of, like, she was going to take the 5th penalty, and then Falk was moved to 5th, and Falk was prepared to, but the fact that Stina could have been there and slotted away that penalty, that does frustrate me, and it frustrates me that maybe Blomqvist wasn't there to take that one, but I do think it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that she got injured, but like I said, if she actually is injured, then I can't really complain. But it does feel like surely she'll have gone on slightly longer. Is my opinion, but as I said, kind of fair enough. So yeah, that's kind of sort of explains his thoughts on why he played, why Holmberg came in, and why senior players maybe were lower down in the list. I also wanted to speak about, there was an injury which we did not know about, and that was Hannah Bennison. Okay, she was the only player that was not available at all, and no one knew about it. So he says, we didn't want to give the opponents any fun with this. The goalkeepers write down which players they are going to take penalties, and we thought England could hold out as long as they wanted, with Bennison maybe taking a penalty. But we knew beforehand she was in the warm-up, and so the hope was that she could be in for a possible semi-final, but she wasn't available in that match. He also said neither she nor the medical team considered her fit. So we knew beforehand that she wouldn't be able to play. But for tactical reasons, we didn't say anything. So for me, that's like, again, that's like, okay, that makes me feel better because I was confused why she didn't come on. I thought like she might come on just for extra legs anyway for Zygotiomi or Angeldal, even though they were playing really well. It kind of made sense maybe. Obviously, they were both penalty takers. Angeldal, a penalty taker for us, but missed. Zygotiomi scored a really good one. But I think it's like, okay, I'm less annoyed about that, because that was one I did think Bennison and Blomqvist were going to come off the bench and take a penalty. Obviously, Blomqvist happened and didn't take a penalty, and Bennison never came off, and that was weird to me. So she was injured. What can you do? So we can't. People shouldn't complain about that. That makes sense, and I get why they didn't tell us she was injured, because it did maybe conceal something for England. That makes sense. So yeah, that was something I was interested in, why Bennison didn't. And obviously, really good one against USA. So yeah, and he goes on to say the criticism, it became ridiculous. It does not belong at this level. He's talking about the criticism to him to let Smilla Holmberg take the penalty. I'm kind of agree. I don't really get his thing about, can question whether it would have done on the men's side. I think he's saying he doesn't think he would have got this criticism if it was a men's team. I'm not sure about that. I don't really understand that point. But like I said, I sort of stand with the decision. Obviously now it's like, okay, maybe just, if I could choose now, it'd be like, okay, Janogy, have a go. We know Holmberg missed, in hindsight, of course. But I think she's a good. We know Holmberg can take good set pieces. Like I said, she's a really good player. Why not let her take the penalty if she's more up for it than the other players? And obviously she missed, but like I said, I'm sure she can come back from this and come back a lot stronger, because it's a learning, and it's like I said, I'm gutted it happened to her, but I don't think it's as awful from a coaching perspective. I don't think Gerhardsson does deserve this criticism. I want to then also just go on and just talk a bit about Gerhardsson and just say, I think he's done so much for the team. The 8 years he's come in, the way he's kind of changed the style, encouraged more technical aspects of the players, encouraged more of that out of them, to try and express themselves in that way, and kind of built the team with that kind of Islani, built them around other players and other players' strengths. And then there's also always talk about how he lets, from him and also the players, how he, obviously there's structures that he puts in place, and you can clearly see that from a coaching perspective, very good. But then decision making comes down to the players on the pitch, and they can adapt to stuff. And I think there's clearly, from when you hear from what players say about him, and when you hear from him, I think it's clear that he's a quality coach and he's done so much for the national team. And I just want to say I'm really, really, really pleased for him. And he's gotten a semi-final, apart from this tournament, a semi-final in every one of his major competitions. Obviously, the final, the Olympics, semi-finals in the World Cup, and then bronze, and then the semi-final in the last Euros. And I think what's so really impressive record, kind of slightly ruined by this year, but yet this year, as he says, I think based on the championships we've been through, we are playing our best championship compared to other championships. We have never had such a dynamic group as we have during this championship. And I think that's true. I don't think we've necessarily ever played as well, or played this well under him in a championship, in that fluid. And I think also, as I said before, he's clearly really important for how he's created the dynamic in the group, the kind of harmony in the squad, the really top spirit. And I hope that's something that can be carried on. A different character in Tony Gustafsson coming in, but I think he can help carry that on, because there will be quite a lot of similar players. There will be a changeover need to happen. But he also says it was absolutely the toughest loss we've had for both the leaders and the players. And I think that's clear. I mean, I did find it really, I did think it felt tougher just because it felt like we had so much more to give, and that's what lots of the players said after the match. It's just so hard to take when you know how good we were. And I haven't spoken about the match, apart from the penalty. I don't really want to go into it because it feels harsh because it feels hard because I think we were really good and we just switched off for 2 minutes. You know, you can complain about subs, but at the end of the day, it was 2 minutes that we just crumbled and lost it. You know, um, and that's really sad. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to do, like I said at the end, just a little kind of tribute to him. I know a lot of people are very thankful for him, and I think at the same time you can obviously criticize some of his decisions at the end of it, but I do also probably agree that maybe some of the criticism is harsh in terms of just truly kind of being like, why would you make that like decision? It's a lot easier now, and it's a penalty shootout. Like anything can happen. I don't think we should really analyze it as deeply as probably as I have done in this video. But yeah, and just an extra thing. But yeah, so I am really thankful, and I think it's that sad he's going. Maybe it's the right time for someone else to come in, like Gustafsson, and kind of change it up a bit. Maybe it's just never gonna happen, get over the line, with Gerhardsson. But I think he's a really top manager, and coach and like person with the people. I think he's very personable with the players, and I think that's so clear. Again, all the players speak of him so highly, personally and from a coaching perspective. Yeah, so I think it's a sad way for his kind of era to end, um, but I think he's done so much, um, and I think a lot of people do appreciate that. Um, but yeah, that was just kind of my thoughts on the penalty, on kind of the penalty shootout decisions. There's obviously a lot more in his press conference if you want to watch it. These were just kind of the main kind of article headlines that I wanted just to go through. Um, but yeah, I'll be doing more videos. Um, I'll be doing more videos coming up about maybe reflecting, probably not reflecting on the tournament because it feels like we were really good and it feels hard to do that. But maybe reflecting on some of the players, where we go from here, how good some of the players were, where will they be at the next possible championship, or yeah, and then also a video probably on Tony Gustafsson, talking about him at some point. That's more in the future, but that's the kind of stuff, and some other stuff I'm sure as well. I'll keep doing videos, so thank you so much, and like and subscribe if you like these videos because it helps out the channel, and keep commenting. Like I said, it was really nice talking to loads of people in the comments after the last game and seeing what you guys thought about decisions and stuff. So yeah, thank you, and I'll see you next time.